All right, so you heard a little earlier Reverend Frank Chikane talking about that we shouldn't be held to ransom by crime in this country. Well, it certainly seems that in particular areas it's worse than others. 8 people murdered over the weekend at the Glebelands hostel in Umlazi. This is just one of a number of shocking killings we have seen in Kwazulu Natal in recent months. There's been a number of hits taking place in broad daylight. The latest, a woman who worked at the local Home Affairs Department in Tongaat. And then, of course, the news that a lecturer was abducted from Mangosuthu University of Technology last week. He was found dead over the weekend. The recent crime stats show Umlazi records the highest number of murders, and Kwazulu Natal is in the top 3 of high crime provinces. Let's speak now to Professor Mary de Haas. She's someone who, for decades, has monitored crime in the province. Mary, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it's just when I saw the news about Glebelands, I thought, what now? Because there was a commission of inquiry into political killings that also looked at Glebelands. It found there was a turf war. We've seen arrests. We've seen a prosecution. Is it all starting up again for Glebelands?
No, this is not like it was a few years back. A few years back, there was a definite political theme. It was linked to the council councillor. It was linked to intra-ANC divisions because the councillor was in the Zuma faction, as all of them were, and there were people complaining about service delivery, so they started targeting them. So it was very different. It was very definitely politically themed then. What happened at the weekend is just a continuation of the crime that is there all the time. People are getting killed all the time there for reasons that no one is sure of. Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's crime. The usual thing, just as it is in Umlazi. And I think it hit the headlines because, the massacre basically, and, like so many other massacres. And it's not helped. Look, there's two reasons for this. The first is the atrocious state of peace. And the second is etikwenye municipality, because streetlights don't work half the time. This has been going on for years. It's quite bushy in some areas. It's not difficult to police because there are blocks. It's not like say Kwamashi, where you have small 4-roomed houses packed together. And then, of course, you have now, I think on Sunday, when I spoke to someone there, they hadn't had power for 2 days, since Friday.
Yeah, so those things all
imagine when
contribute.
have to go to work in the dark. It's a haven for criminals.
But Umlazi does seem to have a particularly bloody history, taking us back to the 1980s, and we saw the conflict between the ANC and the IFP. This lecturer was murdered. He was kidnapped first and then found murdered. 17-year-old boy, he was luckily rescued alive yesterday in Pietermaritzburg. We seem to have a rise in kidnappings. We're also seeing these brazen daylight hits, even in rush hour traffic. Mary, before it would be, is there a political element? And now you're saying, no, not so much. Then the next question normally is this linked to the taxi mafia? And I'm wondering if there's more than just taxi mafia. Are we looking at a number of syndicates and gangs coming in, like big international kidnapping syndicates? What's at play here, Mary?
Oh, it's difficult to unravel. Look, there's some things that are sure. The first is that all of this starts with the shocking state of policing. You have a crime intelligence that's dysfunctional, full of criminals. You have a minister running the police operation. You have the politicization of police, nepotism. You get promoted to be it's management because it's all nepotistic. Crime intelligence is dysfunctional, and that's where it starts. If you had a functioning crime intelligence, they would pick up where the criminals are, where the guns are. You just have to look at reports in the courts, because Mrs. X wants to kill her husband, and she easily finds a hitman with a gun. People in Umlazi have been telling me for years they know where the chop shops are, for the hijackers. They knew where the criminals were in Glebelands, even during the political killings there. The hijackers, the truckjackers. And Umlazi police is historically bad. But look, about Umlazi, it's really important to note that there's a problem with the crime stats, because Umlazi is a very, very big area. So naturally there's going to be more killings. And the problem with comparing these different areas is that you should be doing it per 100,000 if you want to make a proper comparison of what's happening. And that's not available, not for individual police stations. So, I mean, this was just yet another example. And you ask about, look, organized crime clearly is part of the problem. Drugs, syndicates to hijack and maybe now to kidnap as well. That's the latest. Whether they're international, I mean, I dare say there are international links, but they've been around for a long time. They've just got worse. They were here during apartheid, the organized crime and drugs. But they've just got a heck of a lot worse. The police have got worse and worse. I mean, there is a crisis in policing. We should be addressing that. There's no oversight. They can do as they like. I mean, that is the crux of the problem.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, all of these things will happen. The broad daylight, I mean, some of those cars that are used have got false number plates. The taxi mafias are obviously implicated. And the other problem is the guns, because there's no proper control over who's getting guns, it seems. There's no proper control over the security industry, which is huge. And we're not talking the old established bigger ones. We're talking the ones that pop up, aren't even registered, get guns. I mean, something has to be done. I mean, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But something must be done.
Absolutely,
and no
Mary.
one's doing it.
And it seems from what you're saying, and from the stats that we do see, it's getting worse. And as you say, the policing is the problem. These syndicates have probably been there, as you say, for a long time, but it looks like a growth industry at this point, that anyone can jump in. There is very little consequence. Mary de Haas, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much for giving us your insight and perspective. Really worrying situation in Kwazulu Natal. That's Violence Monitor Mary de Haas. Stay with us. We've got more news coming up at the top of the hour.